All right, so welcome to the new video. Today we're talking about statistics, which, I like to take a lot of statistics. So does this guy, Trader Dante. But I think he, like a lot of people, misuse statistics. And there's a specific video that I remember watching years ago called Open Drives in the Bund. Now, this is quite expensive, this content, just for some videos. So I'm not expecting anyone to buy it, but I do want to let you know that this is what I'm talking about. I will go over what he says, and I'm not going to show you any clips or anything, but just to let you know that is what I'm going to be referring to today. So what I remembered him saying, now he has a setup that he uses called the swing failure pattern, and it looks something like this. And basically what this is you have a high here, a significant high. The idea, and I actually might want to make another video about this, challenging this idea, but we'll get to that next time. The idea is that you have stops up here, right? And this is a short because the market has come in, it's tested the high, and it's closed below. And this is a negative sign, so the idea is that the market might come down. And that's what I thought the video was, right? And I thought that he had an open drive below it, and he was saying, because we've got an open drive here, that this is a good target because people put their stops down here. People think that it's really bullish based on the open drive, and so this is a good target. Now, actually in the video, he has a slightly different setup, but it's the same kind of idea, right? So he has something like this, where it comes down, and like the next day, he gets an open drive like this. So that would be an open drive candle. And for those that don't know, an open drive is the first 30 minutes of the session. If the open is exactly the same as the low, i.e. it doesn't tick below the open at all, then you've got an open drive. And it's the same on the other side, right? So if it just goes down, doesn't tick up at all in the first 30 minutes, then that's an open drive, right? So imagine that's a candle there. That would be the open drive, right? So he has something like this, and this is his level. And, price trades up here, and it does some kind of structural break to the downside, and he gets short. And so the mistake that he makes is that he talks about this as if it's very high probability that it will come down and test this low at some point in the day. And the reason that he says this is because he has statistics that show that 80% of the time, the market will test the low of an open drive on any given day, right? The problem with this is true right here. Right as soon as the candle is closed, that's when it's 80%. If it then comes up here and it doesn't do anything for a while and it's getting further and further away, that's not 80% anymore, right? So he says that it's very high chance for the market to come down and test this. And he rightly says that he doesn't know how the market's going to get there. He just has the statistic for the 80%, right? So I'll show you the Excel sheet that he gives. So this is my recreation of it. This is the same data, right? So I think the video was made in 2017 at some point. So it's basically 3 years of data. And you've got 120 open drives, and 96 of them fail. That's 80% failure rate. And then you've got the times where they do fail down here, right? So you can see most of them fail very early on, which he does point out to his credit. But he doesn't seem to understand that if it's then later on, that means it's less likely to fail, right? It's not like it's still 80% chance. No, it's not 80% chance anymore, because either you're going to be one of the times that where it doesn't fail, which is going to be the same throughout the day, but the chance of you being in one of these is going to go down and go down and go down, right? So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Now, to illustrate this point, I got some Bund data right here. Now, what I've done with this is I took the data from Dukascopy and tried to turn it into futures data. So tried to average it to one tick basically, such that it would match up with futures data. Now, obviously it won't match up perfectly, so I wouldn't trust this data. I wouldn't trade Bund with this data. I'd go and get new data. But as an example for what I'm talking about, this is pretty good, I think. So this is if it's not an open drive, right? So imagine a situation where this wasn't an open drive and we had a low like this. So what I'm checking is the chance of it taking out the low here. And obviously if it was a down candle for the first session like this, then we would be looking at the chance of it taking the high up here, right? So that's what these statistics are showing. So 73%, I've gone from middle of 2016 up until 2023 in the Bund, and we can see it's 73% chance. And you can see the time of day that it ends up coming in at over here. And don't worry about the time, because I think that's actually 1 hour offset from what it actually should be. But anyway, if you look at the open drive and you compare that against the time it's not an open drive, so not an open drive, about 73%, open drive, about 73%. So, you know, that's kind of one strike against the open drive, because really what that's telling you is, like, imagine the first candle on any market. The likelihood of you running both the high and the low is going to be very, very high, just because price is so close to both of them. You know, we know that price goes up and down, and it deviates throughout the day. So the point is that the statistic alone does not give you an edge. It doesn't give you, it doesn't give you an edge. So what would I do in order to prove that there was an edge to the open drive? What I would do is I would take the first candle, right? I would take the first candle. Now, it might be an open drive, it might not be an open drive, right? But what I would then do is I'd mark in my target. This is in a hypothetical backtest, right? So here's your target, no matter what. And then I would mark in points that were sensible amounts away from this, right? So I don't know what the average range of the Bund is, but let's just say that it's 5 points. Sorry, not 5 points, but like, let's say that we use 5 points as our sort of grid, right? So you mark out like a 5-point grid like this, right? And we're going to take a bunch of hypothetical trades. And this is kind of the secret to finding out if you have an edge with a statistic, right? Is you need to make a hypothetical trade with it. Okay, so let's say that this is 5 points away from the target here. So what you're going to do is you're going to put a stop loss of 5 points there, take profit of 5 points, and you're going to run this across all the data you have. And then you're going to take one over here. This is going to be 10 points, right? So 10-point stop loss here, and 10-point stop loss here. And you're going to keep doing this up until a point where there's not very much data, right? So you do 5, 10, 15, and so on. And then you want to separate the data into, was it an open drive or was it not an open drive? And you want to compare that data. And you want to see if, you know, you would assume that the normal one, you're going to get about a 50% win rate. That's what you would assume, right? And we're assuming that because the stop loss and the take profit is the same. Okay. And then if in the open drive, you can see that it's getting above 50%, that would give you some kind of indication that there's actually an edge. There's actually a draw on price towards this level, right? So that's not an open drive, but if it was a candle like this, okay, because that's the implication, right? The implication is the market wants to come down and take out this level. Okay, so that's how you would do it. And then if I had any evidence like that, the next thing I would do is I would start looking at real trades in my market of choice. So say it's the Bund, and say that we're using the swing failure pattern, because that's an easy one to explain. And actually, I've done a little bit of testing on it as well. So say you've got a swing failure pattern like this, and you've got the open drive down here. So we're just zooming into this area here and pretending that's the open drive, right? And then what I would do is every setup that I had, whether or not it's an open drive, I would record the trades and I would put the take profit there, like in the back test, right? Put the stop loss wherever you want to put it. And then I would compare the performance, right? I would compare the performance and I would say, how well do the trades where we have an open drive do? How well do the trades where we don't have an open drive do? This is the kind of thing that you need to do if you want to actually demonstrate that there's an edge to using open drives in this way. And just to go a bit deeper on this, I did do something similar to this, right? So because I thought that it was an SFP, if I was misremembering the video in my head, what I ended up doing is, this is Eurodollar data, by the way. I made a bot in CTrader, and I had it trade the swing failure pattern with a couple of like tweaks to it to make it pretty good for Eurodollar. Hour 1 candles, right? So this is what it looks like just without the fair... Okay, let me explain what I'm doing actually first. So we got the swing failure pattern. Right, and I thought, what would be kind of analogous to an open drive in this situation? And I thought, what if we had... Just pretend that this is not drawn really badly. Say that the high is, I don't know, up here or something. So say that you sweep the high there. Then you can look back at the previous candles. And what if we have something like this, right? So we have something like this. Now, this has been popularized as a fair value gap by a well-known fraud called ICT. I would know this personally as a liquidity gap, but people know this as a fair value gap, right? So the idea is that the high of this candle here and the low of this candle here, if there's a space in between them, so it's basically about this candle here, right? If this candle's a big candle where it moves up quickly, it leaves a gap here. So a liquidity gap or a fair value gap. And I thought maybe there's some kind of analogy here with open drives, right? So maybe there's some liquidity resting down here, right? Because the idea is that the market wants to fill these gaps, right? Now, technically, you might put the take profit there, right, rather than down here. But I decided to test it with this low here, right? So again, 1-to-1 stop loss to take profit. We test. There's the target, and then stop loss is the same as the target, basically. And then if this is a fair value gap, we record it as FVG. And if it's not, then we don't, right? So you might have a candle set up instead that's like this. And then maybe you have this candle like this, but maybe it's got a low like this. So this wouldn't be a fair value gap because this is higher than this. And so basically that's all I'm recording, right? And I'm trying to see if it is a fair value gap, does that add anything to the trade? Like, in other words, is this a good target? Okay, in this specific scenario. So what I've done here is, you see I've got the FVG there. So, okay, so this is like a separate thing. Let me just show you the no fair value gap first. Okay, so I'll just separate it by... Okay, so no fair value gaps, that's what it looks like. Not very good. If there is a fair value gap, looks pretty good. All of them together is that. So it does seem to suggest that fair value gaps are a good filter for this particular setup. Now, one thing I also thought of is if you have a fair value gap here, it's likely that the target's going to be higher, right? Because you might have a very small target if you're just trying to go like, I don't know, like down here rather than all the way down here, for example. So I thought on average, you might be looking at a higher target. So what I also did was filter by the distance in pips, right? So you can see if you do that, if it's a very small value, it doesn't look too good. Once it starts getting higher, the profitability goes up here. Okay, so I thought, what if we also just filter all of the trades, but we filter it by, let's say, more than 40 pips, because if you look at this and we say, scroll down here, so if we look at 40 pips, that's, we start at 10 and then we go up to the max here. So that would be like here upwards. So that looks pretty good as a filter, right? So if you then apply that to no fair value gaps, so go smallest to largest, you can see it still looks pretty bad, even if we have that. And if we apply that to the fair value gaps and we go smallest to largest, we can see that that does seem to be a decent filter, right? Because it does pick up, but it doesn't really pick up until we have that. Now, obviously that's a lot of filters and we don't have much data, but we do have some data to suggest that that would be actually quite a good filter. And so we probably can say that, at least in this case, that there is a draw in a fair value gap situation towards the bottom here. So that's how you have to use statistics. So that's all I want to talk about today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.